Well, today, Lloyd, I am so excited to welcome back Mark Robert Waldman, who is one of our very favorite guests and one of our very favorite people. I'm thrilled because he is an expert in neuroscience, and we have had the opportunity to have him on the show. We even were lucky enough to actually go and do a little workshop with him for 3 days up in beautiful Ventura, and he was amazing. So I want people to know a little bit about him. I'm going to say a little bit, but I also want to let you know that you can find out a lot more about him at conflicthealing.com and also at his website at markrobertwaldman.com. And so I just want to tell you, he's written 14 books. He writes prolifically. He is an expert. He studies, he researches, he is a teacher at Marymount College. He teaches in the Holmes Institute. Two of my favorite books that I have right here, one of them is Words Can Change Your Brain, Conversation Strategies to Build Trust, Resolve Conflict, and Increase Intimacy. This has been really a wonderful book for me as an attorney mediator who tries to resolve conflict all the time. This I keep with me all the time. It's all yellow and written in, and I love it. And the other one, which is really his newest book, it's called Neurowisdom, The New Brain Science of Money, Happiness, and Success. And this is by Robert Waldman and Chris Manning. And you can see I even have my little sticker on here so no one steals it from me. Because people will say, oh, can I borrow that? And they forget whose it is. So anyway, those are two of them. And then I read every month. I read his wonderful articles with his partner in crime, Andy Newberg, who is an MD in neurology. Anyway, I read his wonderful articles that he writes for Science and Mind magazine. So whether he knows it or not, I'm with him a lot. Spend a lot of time with him with his beautiful writings and his wisdom, his own wisdom. And so I'm just going to have him tell a little bit more about some of the exciting things that he does, so I don't have to read it. So Mark, we love you so much. Tell a little bit more so my audience gets a little bit of a taste of who you are.
Sure. I just jotted down a few notes about what I would like to share with you, and here they are.
And he's got a great sense of humor too, so that's fun too.
And so usually one of the ways that we set up a brand new model at Loyola Marymount University. It's called Brainbased Experiential Learning. Because in the neuroscience research, the way in which we've been taught to learn and study and remember things that's important absolutely has nothing to do with the way your brain remembers and wants to learn. How it learns very differently from anything that we've been taught. Well, this is why I love neuroscience. When I came into it, I was totally lost. If you go to PubMed and look at any neuroscience journal, I can pull out paragraphs and I can show it to any other neuroscientist in the world, and they won't even know what it means. But within there, if you take the time, and I like to sit back and maybe go through, 500 or 1,000 abstracts over a few hours, looking for something interesting and new, and maybe just read, 20 or 30 papers a day. That's kind of curious to me, but I don't read them from top to bottom. I just scan through them. I use my intuition. I sit back and just ramble around on the page until something jumps out at me. So I'm not using my thinking. I'm not using my logic, which is kind of up here, to go after what I think I want to look at. I'm sitting back in this relaxed state of mindful awareness, and I'm trusting my intuition to guide me, my whole brain, towards what it finds inspiring, anything that's new and different. And in that particular way of learning, this turns out to be the best way that your brain learns anything. So if you get one of my books, for example, or even if you're in one of my courses, I don't want you to start on page 1. Start on page 1 if you feel like it. If you want to go to page 62 or start at the back of the book and then open up the middle, this is the most interesting way to find out what you intuitively, your own unique personality finds interesting. It's kind of like when you go to a bookstore and you see something that looks interesting on the cover, and you'll flip it around and look here and there, whatever else. I like to open up to some chapter and read the first paragraph. If the first paragraph doesn't grab me, for me,
Yeah.
there goes the book. Imagine using that in all of our educational systems.
Mm.
So here's how the brain actually works, and then I'll answer your question about me from that intuitive place. What you would do is that you would read something for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, or you would listen to the lecturer or the speaker for 5 or 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then ideally, you could pause the recording if you're looking at it, or even if you're in a live room, just who cares? Zoom out. Just when something strikes you that's interesting, you immediately close your eyes, you kind of savor that insight, then you write it down. Sure, you miss the next 5 minutes of what that person has said, but this is what happens when you're in a classroom anyway.
Right.
Your brain focuses for maybe 20 or 30 seconds, and then it wanders off into a mind-wandering, daydreaming-like state. And what's happening when you're in that mind-wandering, daydreaming-like state, that's where the rest of your brain is deciding what's valuable and important to it. So we all have a set of inner values. We usually disconnect from that. So here's a perfect example of that. I'm going to use a mindfulness bell. I'm going to ask everyone who's watching this, and Mary, yourself, Mari, to just close your eyes and maybe yawn or stretch or just deeply relax for a moment. And I've been babbling on for about 5 minutes, tossing in a little bit of brain science here and there. And nobody's going to remember more than 5 or 10 words of what I said. Just ask your intuition right now if it found anything that was interesting in anything that I just said. Don't go look for it. See if you can just allow a sense come through you. See what pops into your mind about what you found new, interesting, insightful, curious, or different in anything that I've just said.
Well, I think what you talked about that kind of got me was, when you hear something interesting, write it down and don't worry that you're going to miss the next couple sentences, because that is what, is going to resonate with you, and that your mind does it anyway. So you might as well take the important stuff that really resonates and kind of ruminate about it or think about it.
Right. So your key thing was, pause, take something that you found interesting and write it down.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing. If we had another 50 people here in front of the camera, 30 of them would have something totally different.
Right.
And a lot of people would write down something that has nothing to do with what I actually said. And that's perfectly fine. So most teachers out there are trying to get you to remember something that they think is important based upon their knowledge or their brain or their background that has nothing to do with the student in the room whose brain is trying to find out what's important to it. If we can remember that everybody has a unique curiosity, everybody has a different interest. I mean, I always wonder, why does somebody want to go into that line of work? Why is somebody exploring that piece of research? How did they get into that? If we can learn how to trust our intuition to guide us, then we can see if what's interesting and curious to us might have value to other people. If it has value to other people, that's the basis for the type of work that perhaps you should consider doing. If it's of value to other people, they're going to pay for that. So that's why the subtitle of both my book and this new program I created called The Power of Neurowisdom, it's the new brain science of money, happiness, and success. In other words, you have to find out in an instinctual part of your brain what stirs you up.
Yeah.
You want to find out and look at in your past all the things that you have been passionately interested in throughout your past. That'll give you a key and a clue to what your own unique passion is. If you don't have passion in the work that you're doing, half of your brain is going to stay asleep. You have to stimulate what's actually called the value network that's in the center of your brain. It's also your awareness network. It's also your social brain as well.
Mhm.
What do you find deeply important, deeply valuable? What are your deepest, innermost values? In that list of words that you can come up with, you can find out what your direction should be, not what your parents told you,
Right.
not what your minister told you, not what your teacher told you, but what felt driven, but not impulsively, because you then have to bring that in. Well, okay, is this useful in the world? I have to pay my bills, whatever else.
Right.
So we're going to mix your own intuitive interest and passion with the things that you think are important, along with the things you can elicit from the world in terms of what they might want from you, because they want your best. But with all of that being said, in the brain-based experiential learning model that's described in NeuroWisdom and in the power of NeuroWisdom,
Right.
again, everyone, just close your eyes for a moment. Don't try to remember anything that's important. Again, what pops into your mind that you found potentially useful in everything I've said in the last 5 minutes?
You know what hit me, or what kind of was a memory for me, was when you talk about experiential is so important. So, like when I read your posts on Facebook, that I love all the time, by the way, it's, you ask us to do something. Like just now, you asked me to go within and listen to the bell, and I am engaging. My brain is engaging. My body is engaging in an experiential way. And what also came to mind was why it's so important, because I teach too, you know that when we teach, it's so important to give stories, because then people can relate to maybe some part of the story. Like, oh, that's happened to me, or wow, I remember that happened to my mother or my sister. So that again engages me in that experiential. And then when you have me pause and participate with my own thoughts, it becomes a connection, not only to what you're saying, but a connection to you. So that's what came to my mind.
And you can bring that into a dialogue, into an intimate relationship or a professional relationship. Imagine that both people simply sit back, stay in this relaxed state of mindful awareness, and we simply say whatever comes to our mind, but we're going to limit it to about 10 or 20 words, because that's all you can consciously be aware of at a time.
Yeah.
And then the other person intuitively responds to what you said. You go back and forth and back and forth. And the conversation seems spontaneous, and where in the heck this is going, because that's outside of the normal way we talk. But then within 4 minutes, when we do this in a big group workshop, 25% of the people suddenly have tears running down their face. And you were in one of those workshops.
Yeah, beautiful.
Like, I'm giving up all the ways that I think I should talk and listen to the other person. I'm trusting my intuition. I'm staying just aware of their face. I'm listening to the tone of their voice. I'm letting their words flow through me. And I just respond to what comes up next. And suddenly both people find themselves talking about something profoundly intimate to a stranger. And it's so surprising and so wonderful. That's the basis of that book, Words Can Change Your Brain. So we teach our executive MBA students how to do that. You can go into a board meeting. You can go into any group of individuals that whether it's a social group or a business group, and you all train yourself to speak only 10 or 20 words. And then you go back into this relaxed, mindful state. It's like a meditative state. And you talk and engage from that meditative state. This engages a particular part of your brain that actually creates a balance with these other networks. Normally, we're thinking about what we want to do or say.
Right.
So that's your thinking network or your central executive network. That gets tired really quickly, or we hit a barrier and our mind goes wandering off. That's where the creative problem solving parts of your brain are going on outside of your consciousness. It's also where all your fantasies and imagination are going on about, if I did A, B, and C, something positive will happen. But if I did D, E, and F, something negative would happen. So this is your default mode network. Seligman likes to call it the imagination network, so that's the word I like. And what we've done, and the amazing thing about this piece of neuroscience is that anxiety is purely imagination. Now take a moment and think about this. This is where, if you want to know what I'm all about, I'm just out there to discover anything new in brain science that helps us have a better sense or a different sense of the 100 years of psychology and psychotherapy and personal development work that we've been doing. These are little nuggets. Nobody's ever been able to identify where anxiety is in the brain until now. It's part of this imagination network.
Wow.
Which means I'm thinking about something that might happen in the future. It's not real. It's not happening now. It's a fantasy, usually mixed in with a little bit of memories. When you realize that all anxiety is that your mind, your thinking, your consciousness is focusing on that part of predicting a potential negative future. Maybe something bad will happen. I don't know if I have enough. Maybe they won't like what I'm about to say, blah, 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 blah. The more.
So that's based on your memories, a lot of it, right?
No, half of it is totally creative.
I knew. Oh,
The other part is the memories being pulled up because this creative part is only semi-language based. So they're floating around. So if you can train yourself just to sit back and watch how your thoughts and feelings are constantly flowing in and out of consciousness, you'll see, first of all, that you're not your thoughts and feelings, that they're just constantly being generated by the imagination center of your brain. And they go about 30 times faster than you would ever be able to speak or write down. This is one of the reasons why people are always talking too much. If your brain can only remember 10 or 20 words, but I'm trying to capture the 10 seconds of incredible psychobabble going on, or neurobabble that's going on up here, the person ends up speaking about 3 minutes trying to capture something that's not even word-based, but the listener is only going to pick out 10 of those words that you're saying. That's why I'm saying, if I pause right now, nobody here is going to repeat accurately hardly anything I've just said, but you don't have to. If you take that time and just say, all right, what did I find useful or valuable? Then even the most spontaneous conversation or the most difficult otherworldly dialogue, a bunch of neuroscience, shall we say, then this is the most amazing discovery. You have this part in your brain that will always make sense out of anything in a way that you personally find valuable, and that's simply different from everybody else. So we're all walking around.
What part of the brain is that's doing that can find that place?
Here's our thinking network.
Is that the frontal lobes, or what is that?
Well, anytime I say one part of the brain, it's always connected to everything else.
Right.
This is all what's called brain network theory. And this is changing the entire language of neuroscience.
Okay.
So this central executive network, your thinking network here, your consciousness is only right here. It goes back and forth between your imagination, your consciousness, pulling up memories, your consciousness. But all of these research that's being done on mindfulness training and meditation training, when you can relax enough in that deeply relaxed state, you can watch how you think and how this part of your brain is creating all kinds of fantasies and imaginations. You're stimulating the salience network, okay? Your thinking network, your imagination network, and that salience network. And the moment you are being aware of, like right now, you're probably thinking about what I'm saying, because to be aware of, you just have to sit there and let my words flow through you.
Right. And what's happening is something will jump into my head, even though I'm really, because I want to focus on what you're saying. I love it. And I love you. And I want to hear every word. But I do notice as you're doing this, that a thought will come in, and I'm going, okay, stop it. Focus. Because I'm trying to be really aware of what the thoughts are that are coming in as you're talking.
And I'm saying, don't do that.
I know.
Just let them flow through until you get a little tiny aha experience. What, wow, that was really cool. Then even as you're listening to this or watching this right now, I don't care if you miss the next 2 or 3 minutes of what I'm saying. If you
Right.
have that little tiny aha experience, which is again your salience network connecting to the most creative, intuitive part of you, write it down. That's more important to you than anything I am saying.
Well, that's why it's so beautiful that we're recording this, right? So that people can watch it a couple times or listen to it. I know for me, when I hear you or I need to read something that you've read, I can read it 5 times. I underline it. I go, oh, I need to ruminate on this. I need to think about, what does this mean? And so, that's the beauty of us recording this, is that people can watch it several times. If they miss what you said 5 minutes ago because they were listening to something that took them away 8 minutes ago, they can go back and hear it and have another new, um,
But
a new insight.
but you're still trapped. No matter how many times you go over it, you're still going to miss what I intended.
So
Okay?
what you're sending is not what I'm receiving.
I have this intention. That's wordless. I'm going to write it out in a way that I think captures that intention.
Right.
But you're going to read those words in the way that your brain is going to accentuate it. Everyone has this experience. You can read the same paragraph or an old book 2 or 3 times, and it's like it's different all the time. But have you ever
And
thought
that's
about
what's, yeah.
why it's different? Because if you try to figure out what those words actually mean to me and make sense out of it in the way I'm hoping it makes sense to you, this is incredibly boring.
It reminds me of every 10 years I read Siddhartha again. I first read it when I was 18. And so I read it again, by Hermann Hesse. And every time I read it, I'm in a different place, connecting with him in a different place. So that jumped into my mind. So when I read something and then I read it later, you're right, I may see something different, which is what's so beautiful about small groups. I run this circle, the spiritual circle. We meet once a month and we do a reading, and then we talk about it, and we all see entirely different things in that reading. And it's wonderful to be
Yeah.
able to discuss that.
So neuroscience says that's what you should do. You shouldn't be
Yeah.
trying to learn what you think I'm trying to teach. You should learn how to trust your intuition, watch what it finds. And I use the word it because I am thinking that this is important. That's that little tiny conscious central executive network up here. I'm asking a person to train themselves to go back and forth. What are you thinking about? What are you aware of? What does your imagination do with all of that? Back to thinking about it, becoming aware of how I'm thinking, becoming aware of how things are wandering around in my imagination. By going back and forth between those three networks, this, in the newest form, I mean, this piece of neuroscience has not even made it into a popular article or a single general public book. That is how you create the best psychological and emotional balance between these dozens of brain networks that are designed specifically to simply help you get those goals that your whole organism finds valuable, pleasurable, rewarding.
Hmm. So let's talk about how that relates to what there's a lot written on mindfulness, right? That's really out there. So let's talk about how that relates to mindfulness. I know when I was watching in my own brain, not watching, but kind of recognizing in my own brain how my thoughts were kind of like over here, you said something and I quickly grasped onto it. And then I said, Mari, go back. You want to hear what he has to say? So that was a form of mindfulness, but kind of let's go into that. I know you say that meditation doesn't have to be the 20 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever. I do it every morning. I get up at 5:15 and I meditate. And now Lloyd is meditating with me because he's recognizing the benefits. But I've done it for years, and for me, I enjoy doing that for 20 minutes.
That's the
But
key element. Whatever meditation you choose to do it out of curiosity. and continue to do it because it's interesting and pleasurable to you. You can tweak any meditation. There's no right or wrong way to do any meditation out there, no matter what that spiritual teacher might have said. That's their belief system. You can mix and match different forms of meditation. And the more you follow your intuition, okay, intuitively, I want to meditate this way today, you'll find that you actually stimulate that important center in your brain, your salience network, because that's what meditation is designed to do. And that way, you'll actually get more into that, shall we say, an enlightened state, because enlightenment simply means, I've gotten out of the way of my old thinking and my old habits and my old behaviors to kind of see the world in the present moment. And that's always a brand new experience. Now, mindfulness, there's two aspects of it. Mindfulness is being used, traditional mindfulness training teaches a lot of people who spend too much time in that daydreaming, mind-wandering imagination part, how to focus their attention. And you can do it in all kinds of ways. You can listen to the sound of a bell, and as it fades away, the harder you listen, the more you're focusing your attention. Now, traditional mindfulness usually says, well, watch your breathing, which I find utterly boring. But the other side of mindfulness is that, this is what John Kabat-Zinn originally said, moment-to-moment awareness of any thought, feelings, or memories or sensations that float into your consciousness. So one is you begin just to watch your breathing so you can learn how to focus your attention, but then you sit back and you watch the different thoughts and feelings that will just spontaneously pop into your mind. Note them, come back to your breathing, note them, come back to your breathing. That's slowly teaching you how to focus your attention. And when you focus your attention, you have better emotional balance. The emotions are in a much deeper part of your brain. But there's a part of mindfulness that's been overlooked.
Wait a second. We are just about out of time. So I'm going to have you kind of get through this. We could talk for hours. I love you, love you, love you. So finish that sentence.
If you do 10 seconds of mindfulness once every hour and just allow yourself to watch all of this crazy stuff that's going on, that actually balances out all three networks in your brain. It's not about focused attention. You then have control over attentiveness, imagination, social, and self-awareness. Period.
Oh, you are wonderful. You are wonderful. We got to do this again. I know you're so busy. Everybody wants you, and that's hard. So thank you for joining us, because I know you are so busy and everybody wants to make sure that they get a piece of you. So thank you for this piece that I had today. And we will stay in touch and have you back again. Go to markrobertwaldman.com and join up and get his books and listen to all the great stuff he has, and go to his Facebook page. So thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.